If the final pairings in Naruto confused you, then you're in the right place, because as someone who has watched a plethora of romance shows, I'm going to break down the structure behind the formulas used and the reason why this might have happened. Welcome to the explanation of the guy's rivalry trope in shoujo, by me, Solids and Bolts. First off, we're going to start with an example. While I read this, I want you to think of what it reminds you of. At the end, I'll give you the answer. Point number 1. Heroine likes a standoffish guy. He's got some traumatic past. Even though he might like her and they develop a little, making progress to help him overcome that trauma, shortly after that, something more severe happens and he runs away. In the meantime, he's with another girl who is kind of toxic. There's a kind and nice guy who has always been by her side since the beginning, liking her, and he tries to comfort her. She tries to get with him, but ultimately fails because she doesn't actually like him and she never moved on from the other guy. In the end, the toxic girl leaves, and the heroine's feelings are reciprocated by the standoffish guy. The answer is... Aoharaido. I bet you were expecting Naruto, weren't you? There are actually some other anime that roughly use the same story structure. I know a lot of people were confused at why on earth Naruto and Sakura didn't end up together. Not only was this pairing given more development and screen time than anyone else in the show, they also had more typical tropey moments with each other that made it seem like Sakura was going to slowly fall for Naruto. But, despite their plethora of moments, it's in moments like these where you can tell the main guy in this guy's rivalry trope was never Naruto. It was actually Sasuke. Dun dun dun. Huh? What? Why? Don't worry, I got you. So now, without further ado, let's get into breaking down this trope. This trope is almost a reverse of the girls' rivalry trope that I explained in my uncut Shojo Tropes video, and I'll explain in another separate video as well. You can loosely map the roles onto the characters of that trope, but there are a few things that make this guy's rivalry trope different, and that is... While girls usually talk to each other about their feelings for the guy and have a bit of a rivals battle behind the scenes, guys will often directly talk to the girl. They're a bit more forward with expressing their feelings directly to her. It's a lot more rare for them to go to the other guy and confront them about it. First up in this trope is the explanation of the Light Prince character. There are two ways this can go depending on whether it's a slice of life or an action story. In both ways, the Light Prince character is initially the nicer of the two characters who treats the heroine with more kindness. He's also got a strong sense of moral justice, even if that sense of justice gets a bit twisted, but he almost always loses in the end. In most action shows, with a guy rivalry, he will start out liking the heroine. She will in turn usually like him back. But something tragic happens, and the Light Prince ends up becoming the big bad antagonist of the show. Whether it's because someone else corrupted him or he corrupted himself, the heroine and the Dark Prince usually end up having to team up and go on a journey to help him, or strike down whoever is manipulating him. Meanwhile, he goes through his own separate character arc, trying to come to terms with whatever evil he's struggling with. In most slice-of-life shows, with a guy rivalry, the Light Prince is genuinely just a nice guy. He sees how rudely or unfairly the Dark Prince is treating the heroine, and is usually given the opportunity to see them interact and get jealous. Because of this, he tries to swoop in when she needs comfort and coax her feelings for him to grow, but even if they date temporarily, he usually ends up being able to tell she doesn't actually like him. He ends up getting dumped, or instead encourages the heroine along in her feelings for the Dark Prince in the end. Second, we're moving on to talk about the Dark Prince character. The Dark Prince is generally more of a tsundere with some major personality issues. He has a dark secret he keeps hidden away that psychologically affects him, as well as having a big impact on his goals and his ability to have friends or relationships. The Dark Prince is also a bit meaner. He may tease the heroine or even bully her. He may also brush her off or ignore her, even if he decides that he likes her. For action stories, he usually goes on some kind of journey with the heroine to save the Light Prince from himself. It's through this journey that they are both given the opportunity to fall in love. The Dark Prince usually falls in love first and slowly convinces the heroine to turn her feelings from the corrupted Light Prince towards him. For most slice-of-life stories, the Dark Prince distances himself due to his trauma. He may treat the heroine poorly, and in some cases, he even tries to get with another girl to make her leave him alone, or to forget his own feelings for her. Either that, or another girl comes along and manipulates him into a relationship, and he's unable to say no. but in the end the heroine succeeds in her efforts to get through to him. Usually he feels guilty, but eventually he lets himself love her. Third, we get to talk about the heroine. In most action stories, the heroine starts out being in love with the Light Prince. She is then pursued by the Dark Prince character in subtle ways while they're on their journey until eventually her feelings shift away from the Light Prince guy and on to him. She may date the Light Prince temporarily due to the Dark Prince forcibly distancing himself and getting with another girl, but even if she does, her feelings stay centered around the Dark Prince the whole time, and the Light Prince eventually lets her go. Finally, she makes a move on the Dark Prince guy, or he dumps his temporary girl and makes a move on her, and they get together. Sometimes there is an additional girl who is not the heroine's rival. Her only goal is to end up with the Light Prince, and she is more often included in slice-of-life tropes. Instead of directly opposing the heroine or doing things to get under her skin, she's typically gentle and patient. She might be a close friend of the heroine, but not someone who is directly involved with the main going-ons of the show. A lot of times, the heroine will even encourage this character in her love as well. Usually, this character gets subtle side developments with the Light Prince character throughout the show, waiting for his one-sided crush on the heroine to be over until, finally, her love is realized in the end. This trope might also have some girl number twos or rival girls. They directly oppose the heroine in her love for the Dark Prince. But, unlike a normal girl's rivalry, the girl number two that rivals the heroine in a guy's rival-centric trope is either really over-exaggerated, much like Karen from Naruto or Ojo from Yumeiro Patisserie, to the point where it's a bit obsessive and almost a little creepy, or really underdeveloped, much like Ino from Naruto or Shoda Sumire in Gaku and Alice, to the point where they don't pose much of a challenge and they only really serve to develop the heroine further. The exception to this case is when there is a square going on with both strong girl rivalry tropes and guy rivalry tropes present at the same time, like Kodomo no Omocha and Princess Tutu. In most action finales, the Light and Dark Princes fight, sometimes against each other, sometimes against a common enemy. Usually the heroine provides some sort of backup support, and the Light Prince's corruption is resolved. In the afterward, it's either shown or assumed that she got with the Dark Prince character, the heroine. In most slice-of-life finales, the side characters are finally broken up with. There's confession scenes, lots of comforting and reassurance, and he eventually decides to let himself love her. Usually in slice of life, since romance is the central goal, they're given a more proper ending with a kiss payoff or something along those lines. However, this is usually shoved off into an extra chapter, a movie, or a separate novel. As you may have already guessed, Naruto maps onto the Light Prince of the story. Kishimoto blended elements of action and slice-of-life tropes. Much like the slice-of-life trope, Naruto is genuinely a nice guy. He starts out liking the heroine Sakura. He sees how rudely the Dark Prince, Sasuke, treats her, and thinks that he can do better, so he does his best to convince Sakura to start liking him. But despite all of their developments and all the nice things he does for her, Naruto knows Sakura's heart is still in Sasuke's court. He also gets side developments with the girl placed in the story for him, Hinata, and eventually ends up with her. But pulling from the action trope, he does go on a journey to save the Dark Prince character from himself, when usually it would be the Light Prince who needs saving. During this journey, he was given several opportunities to develop his relationship with Sakura, and they were even given moments of romantic tension where Sakura seemed like she might waver. This is usually where the Dark Prince and the heroine fall in love in the action trope. However, in the end, he already had a side girl and his feelings were never reciprocated, which is still the trend for Light Prince characters in the slice-of-life trope. Sasuke maps onto the Dark Prince in the story. Much like development in the slice-of-life guy's rival trope, he's a tsundere with a secret that forces him to distance himself from everyone. He goes off on his own and is given developments with another woman, but in the end he accepts his feelings for the heroine and despite feeling guilty for all he's done, ends up building a family with her. Contrary to the action trope, he isn't the one on the journey with the heroine, but Sasuke's journey very closely follows the journey in a typical slice-of-life shoujo development, even though this anime very clearly includes a lot of action. In the finale, Sasuke overcomes his past, and him and Naruto both work to defeat a common enemy, as well as fight each other. And afterward, he still ends up with Sakura the heroine, which is the trend for Dark Prince characters. That brings us to Sakura, who maps onto the heroine. Much like the slice-of-life trope, she brushes off the Light Prince, Naruto, as a friend. Sasuke treats her quite terribly, going so far as attempting to kill her. Through the show, it seems as though she wills her own feelings to waver, but it becomes clear that she was never able to truly give up on the Dark Prince character Sasuke. Finally, Sasuke overcomes his past, acknowledges her feelings, and they get together. Even though she goes on a journey with Naruto and her feelings shift from finding him annoying to finding him reliable, she didn't start the show head over heels for Naruto, like usually happens in the action trope. Naruto never turned evil either, and instead remained good. So it makes it quite different from the foundation for the action trope, even though the developments kind of seem to more follow that trope instead. In the end, Sakura supports Sasuke and Naruto in their fight against Kaguya and heals them in the aftermath of their fight against each other. Sasuke eventually accepts her affection, and they build a family. Hinata most obviously maps onto the light princess girl. Because she is not part of the main cast, she is given a few side developments with Naruto sprinkled throughout the show that turned out to be much more significant by the end. Hinata confessed not expecting an immediate answer. She had to wait until after Naruto was fully rejected by Sakura to have her feelings realized. She was also supported by Sakura, making it clear that she was not a character who was pitted as Sakura's rival in a girl number 2 fashion. After all was said and done, she ends up with Naruto. Now let's look at some of the girl rivalries in Naruto and come to the understanding of whether or not Naruto was truly a square. The first instance of a girl rivalry is Sakura and Ino. If they played up the full trope, Ino should have had interaction with Sasuke, but she was given almost little to no development with him. You can add a girl number 2 to heat things up or add to the heroine's character development, and Ino kind of did exactly that for Sakura. The reason she doesn't feel like a full-on girl number 2 is because once Sai was introduced, Ino's shift towards liking him instead of Sasuke was quite fast. And this rivalry with Ino and Sakura was the focus of a few episodes. So even with the addition of Ino, she feels more like a side girl number 2 thrown in for the sake of the heroine's development, and not the full girls rivalry trope that would make Naruto as a show into a square. The second instance of girl number 2 is Karin. While Karin is a little bit more serious about Sasuke, he almost never returns her affection and remains complacent. She's also quite extreme in terms of being obsessive, which makes her feel again more like a side girl number 2 than a serious rival. As I mentioned earlier, this mirrors Ojol and Yumeiro Patishiere. Sasuke did need her on his team to be a healer, but he shows little to no interest in her other than that. If it was going to be a full square, Sasuke might have temporarily returned her affection while thinking sadly back to Sakura and given some subtle hints about trying to get over his past feelings for Sakura, but that never happened either. So in conclusion, despite these rivalries, I don't think Naruto can be categorized as a full square. It feels more like a triangle with girl number 2s thrown in to develop other aspects of the trope. So now let's answer the infamous question. Why does the show center around Naruto if Naruto isn't the main character in this trope? There's a few reasons for this, and I think a lot of it centers around Kishimoto not being confident in writing romance and Sasuke being kind of added as a character by his editor. He often gave conflicting information in interviews about Sakura's role as well. From my point of view, once Hinata was introduced to the manga in Volume 5, Kishimoto had more or less decided the direction he wanted to take, and his editor likely let him know about using these kind of tropes. But due to Sakura's popularity, as well as what he'd said about his wife, he maybe tried to ease readers into the idea while still giving Naruto and Sakura the majority of the borderline romantic developments. Also, this trope feels like it was relatively new, while a lot of more significant manga had the girls' rivalry trope, so he also seemed like he was kind of figuring out how to write it in that way as well. Shojo tropes are not often used in shonen manga. Instead, the main guy typically ends up with the first nice girl who comes along. There's a mutual love that is simply held back on because of the intensity of the action, and romance isn't the primary focus, so it makes sense that Kishimoto would not give primary concern to developing the romance between Hinata and Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura when it didn't work well for the direction of the action plot at the time. Instead, he threw it in when it was convenient. As you can already tell, he did try to include some tropes. It was necessary for Naruto and Sakura to interact as part of the main cast, and their pairing was quite popular in Japan as well. Despite their developments, he had Naruto reject Sakura's romantic confession to clarify their boundaries friends. But shortly after that, Naruto is still attempting to ask Sakura on dates, and Sakura even does CPR on him. Naruto borderline brushes off Hinata's romantic confession rather than treating it seriously as Sakura's romantic confession, despite rejecting her. Naruto and Sakura were also given a lot more quote-unquote romantic developments. Because of these things, even with tropes, it was still unclear what exactly Kishimoto was going for, and I think that was also kind of intentional. A lot of times, in order to further the tension in fandoms, they will blur the line between the final romances a lot. This is done in shoujo as well, especially when side characters are actually given the chance to date the main ones, although from the second they get together first, you usually know it'll be over for them in the end. There are sometimes little twists that make you think, will the author not actually take the route that was set up by this trope? And I feel like Naruto and Sakura's developments played on that sentiment. Overall, I think a lot of the decisions were made largely in part because this series is a shonen, and romance was not the main focus, as well as playing into the popularity of ships at the time, but ultimately the framework was still laying itself in the background, and in the end, each main character ended with a girl who loved them. It also gave Kishimoto a chance to create a sequel with their children, which he seemed in interviews to take this setup for much more seriously, and his writing of the movie novel and chapter 700 of Naruto expresses that sentiment. If you'd like to know more about the movie novel, feel free to check out my movie novel analysis of Boruto and Sarada's character development through each other. Family dynamics analysis also coming soon. The other thing I feel like I should mention is this show, Flame of Recca. Now, a lot of you probably don't know what this is, but Kishimoto states that he drew inspiration from other ninja shows, and I feel like this was a big one. Flame of Recca started before Naruto in 1995, and right from the get-go you see a lot of similarities. Ninjas, hand signs, the Hokage being a secret fire clan of ninja that sealed a baby away, the main character having fire powers, the main girl having healing powers, the childhood friend having wind powers, etc., etc. Of course, there are some major differences in personality and storyline, but part of Flame of Recca is Recca, the fire ninja, ending up with a nice healer chick, the picture on the left, and the wind user childhood friend ending up with the guy number 2 of the show, which is the picture on the right. So that could have inspired Naruto's ending as well, but who knows? In summary, while it may be surprising to some that things in Naruto ended up the way they did, Kishimoto still ended according to the framework he laid out at the beginning. Looking back, you can see how things fall into place and make sense, and now we have the children's story to follow. And now for 10 examples of other anime that use these tropes. First off is Kodomo no Mocha. It's a square, it's enemies to friends to lovers. Girl number 2 is the new best friend trope, which you'll understand if you read the full analysis that I have out. They're temporarily dating other people, but can't let go of their feelings, and in the end, she ends with the dark prince of the two. The anime very much changes the story. The true ending is in a bonus manga chapter, and is a slice of life. Fruits basket. The light prince girl is included in this one. The heroine chases the dark prince of the group. The light prince has feelings but fails, and the anime remake more closely follows the manga than the original. It's another slice of life. You also have Pretzier. Pretzier is an amazingly popular, it's just a show I liked. It's a short 13 episodes, a Snow White spinoff. In this show, the light prince turns evil and the dark prince and the heroine go on a journey together, so it's kind of the opposite trope from Naruto. Feel free to check it out if you want a brief overview of this trope. Princess Tutu is my favorite anime, and it's got both girl and guy rivalries happening at the same time. It also is about classical music and draws heavily from ballets, each with a twist. The author themselves appears as character in the story, and it's heavily about defying the expectations of fate. While girl number 2 is a little bit toxic, the heroine is incredibly sweet to the point that it isn't really that painful to watch. It's rated as an 8 on my anime list, so it is a bit of a hidden gem. Lots of comedic and funny moments, and an ending that may surprise you. Gakka and Alice is also kind of like a preemptive slice-of-life focused My Hero Academia. It has the dark prince slowly falling through the heroine through a journey to save another character, but the light prince guy doesn't turn evil. The anime only adapts 1/4 of the full story, so I recommend reading this manga over watching the anime. And as another warning, the true ending is in a separate special manga chapter. Searching for the Full Moon was quite popular. I was not the biggest fan. There is a weird square with 3 guys. It deals with topics surrounding death and grieving loved ones. The anime doesn't adapt the full story, so if you'd like the romantic payoff, read the manga. There is also one fairly large change within the storyline developments in the anime versus the manga, which is common, again, for shoujo to have. Kidanden Revolution still has gacha machines around in Japan. It's a kids show. The heroine starts out in love with the light prince, but it slowly falls for the dark prince. They're all idols, and they all have little characters, like cats and turtles, who follow them around. The anime has a good bit of filler and never really gives you any actual development, and it's a long watch. The true payoff only happens in the manga, which I think the last few chapters can only be found with an Italian translation on Facebook, the last time I checked. Hopefully it's been updated since then. Good luck if you choose to watch or read this. The Twin Princesses of Wonder Planet does something interesting. While the Light Prince does get corrupted and also has Natsu's voice actor from Fairy Tail, the relationships end differently in the manga versus the anime. This one is just pretty comedic and is overall a fun watch. Shugochara is still hugely popular today. It just got a sequel series recently. While she doesn't exactly pick one guy or the other in the end, in the sequel there's more of an indication as to who really won her heart. It's about discovering your true self and who you want to be and getting over your insecurities. There's a ton of filler in the anime, and mostly the same thing happens pretty much every episode, but it does feel like a classic that brings back fond memories. Might not be the best starter show as it is incredibly long. Yume Yoropatishir is a cute show about a girl who wants to bake. She's a little annoying at first, but her slow burn developments with the Dark Prince character are quite cute. Unlike most guys' rivalry Dark Princes, this guy only has the attitude and not the look. He also has Bakugo's voice actor. It mostly focuses on the rewards for following your dreams. If you're interested, there are recipes in the back of each manga volume you can try to make as well. Yona of the Dawn is almost to the T description of how I described a guy's rivalry action. The Light Prince turns evil, a Dark Prince and heroine go on a journey, she slowly falls for him with much convincing, but instead of her being a useless princess, she trains, and her training is eventually rewarded and has payoff, even though she's surrounded by a bunch of guys who could easily just do the fighting for her. If you like action, this is a great pick. The manga just finished this year, and a second anime season was just announced. If you're interested, give it a watch or a read. Ao Haraido has a lot of tropes. If you want to get to know Shojo Tropes better, this is what you should watch. It's a bit frustrating because of how toxic girl number 2 is, you've been warned, but it's been highly praised, won several awards, and received a drama adaptation as well. Overall, here are the highlights of the trope, although there are still a few guys' rivalry animes that stray from it or do it in reverse. But usually, the heroine ends with the Dark Prince character. Girl number 2 rivals aren't quite as serious or manipulative and don't succeed in earning the guy's attention, unless it's a square. It's not nearly as toxic as most girls' rivalry-focused anime and manga, and again, squares have both, which is why they are more toxic. That's all. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. If you'd like to check out any of my other videos, I have them linked on the sides.